Great business moments. I'm Jean Kuhn, and today my special guest is Theresa Sperling. And Theresa is a speaking coach, and she has so many things to say about that. So we're going to get right into it, Theresa. But the first thing I always like to ask is tell us your milk crate moment. We all have one.
Sure, absolutely. Well, thanks for having me. And when I read about your milk crate moment, I thought about what was mine. It's really how I ended up becoming a speaker coach.
Okay.
So we're going back quite a few years, about 9 years now. Yeah, 9 years.
Okay.
and I had been diagnosed with cancer. I went through all the treatments, came out on the other side. Prognosis is good.
Oh, good. Good.
But at that point, I was still so stressed out from going through that. And I found my memory was a little weak. Even my speaking, which is odd for somebody, because I was a corporate trainer prior to this, prior to getting cancer. So I spoke for a living.
Mm.
So I was having trouble comprehending, remembering, forming words, grabbing the right words. I was really struggling with that. And I thought, what in the world am I going to do? And who's going to hire me? Because at that time, I was just going to continue with a 9 to 5 job. So I was really stuck. I mean, I didn't know what to do. I was completely lost and really very scared.
Did you go back to your 9 to 5 job?
I did not,
Oh, what happened?
because I thought, how can I possibly function in that type of an environment if I can't remember things, if I can't remember all the details of what I'm doing? And I thought, who in the world would hire me to go back and do that? So I had to really kind of sit with that pain and that fear and think, what could I do? What do I know how to do now? And that was, I knew how to get up in front of a room and speak. And I also knew how to give feedback, how to really pull out the things that people were doing well and the things that they could improve on. And then, of course, how to coach them on that. I had been doing that for years in my Toastmasters club. In fact, I had been doing it for 8 years prior to that. And I was always the go-to person to do the evaluations.
Mm.
So again, I was doing it for free. I was already doing all of that.
Right.
And so I figured out, okay, I can teach public speaking because it's something I already know how to do. I know how to speak. I know how to pull out those things that are being done well, and those things that need to improve. I know how to coach people on that. And here was the key part. I didn't have to learn so much. I didn't have to learn a bunch of new things to
Right.
go and do a job or start something new. So it was repeatable and it was something I knew how to do. So it was a huge relief when that epiphany happened of, you can actually make a business out of this.
Yep.
Because if you think about it, we typically we go through our speech class, right, in high
Mhm.
school. And if we go to college, we typically have something in college. There's usually some requirement. Now, some schools, the school I went to was a liberal arts school, and you had to do a presentation, a paper and a presentation for almost every single class. So that's quite a shocker. That can be quite a shocker. But the point is, we typically don't have any other opportunities where we're taught that. And we're taught at our own pace and starting with our own skill level.
Right.
And that's what I do.
Yay. Yay. So how did you maneuver then from, or is there a path you took, right? When you decided to start your own business? What was that path you took?
So I actually saw an ad in the back of a Toastmasters magazine. There was a lady who has since retired who was teaching people a specific program, and you could go out, you could become a trainer of her program. And I went to Atlanta and I took that program. And the really cool thing was there were people from all over the world that were taking that program with me. It was such a great experience. And we all were just from different, there was 3 of us from the United States, and I think 3 or 4 people from outside of the United States. And it was just a really cool experience to hear how people were going to implement this and where they were going to go with this, and why it was important from where they came from, what they were going to do with it.
So
But
wait,
her,
this was a small, I mean, from it sounds like less than 10 people in the
oh
room.
yeah,
Oh, wow.
yes,
And you
there
said
were seven of us.
okay, all right.
7 of us,
Okay.
yes. And so in her program, she had been doing it since the 80s. She had been doing it all over the world. And so what surprised me, maybe it's not surprising to other people, but what surprised me is she had a lot of business in the Middle East. She would go to the Middle East a couple times a year and teach people how to speak, how to do public speaking, how to get up in front of the group. She was also affiliated with a school in Washington, D.C. that taught etiquette to the ambassadors and people like that who were going to be going all over the country or all over the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she had a really good network going there. And I know it took her a while to build that up, but
This is a story I never heard from you before, right? We've been
yeah,
friends for a while, and I've never heard this story before. This is so interesting.
yes, yes,
So, right, so you found this path, you decided to teach this program that you went to learn how to teach.
yes.
And then where'd you go?
And of course, because I made it my own, because I had so much background in work in Toastmasters, of course, so I knew what they were teaching. And then my own experience from being up in front of a classroom of adults that needed to learn their livelihood. So I
Right.
had a couple different avenues to work with to bring it in to make it my own program.
Love it. Love it.
Mhm.
So now what is it that you're doing these days? What are you doing now?
So I am primarily working with business owners and helping them to become comfortable with talking about their business.
Mhm.
A lot of times when people go to networking, they absolutely will dread that part of having to stand up and talk for even a minute about what they do. And it's a shame because that's your spotlight. You need to be taking that, take full advantage of that. But people are just frightened, or they don't know what to say, or they just get very nervous and, oh, they don't want to do it. And they just dread that part, but they know they have to network. So
Right.
it's a really important part of your business is, number one, you have to tell everybody what you do, right? Unless you magically have somebody else who's going to do that for you.
Right.
And if you do, please tell me so I can have that person go out there and do it for me besides myself doing it. But it's a really important piece of your business is to be able to communicate what you do and to be able to attract clients. And
Well, I will tell you, Teresa, and you and I have talked about this, but people at home don't know. This is part of the reason why I've asked you to be part of Influence, right? Influence is an event coming up in April, and you're going to do some of the teaching there, right?
yes,
And it's the subtitle is Speaker Training for Business Owners, because business owners, in order to make more money, have got to be good at speaking about the problem they solve for their ideal clients, right?
right,
So
right.
I'm super excited to have
Me
you as
too.
part of this. So,
It's going to be great. I am
oh
so
my,
excited for that as well.
it's gonna be so awesome. So I'm glad about that. So let's talk about you now. And I had a question here. I uh, I want to talk about your ATM talk. Tell us what that is.
Sure. So it is, so my ATM talk is my signature talk.
Well,
And
tell them what ATM means to you, right? When you call it your ATM talk, what does that really mean?
well, it's just like that automatic teller machine. When you do it correctly, it pays you like that ATM machine, right? You can just get the
Yeah,
money coming out. But you have
exactly.
to have all the pieces in place. And of course, that's where I come into play and help people with what to say, how to say it, and where to say it, who to
Right.
get in front of. And those are really key pieces to it. But once you have your own ATM talk that pays you like an ATM, it becomes the foundation, and you no longer have to worry about what do I say? What if somebody asks me something and I don't know the answer? Well, you will know the answer because you will be crystal clear on what your message is,
Mhm.
and you will have all these examples that you can go to, And anytime, even in a situation like this, where you're interviewed and somebody asks you a question, you have your go-to because you have that signature talk. It's the foundation of your messaging.
It is. And it's so incredibly important because this past weekend or past week, last week, I was teaching my clients about building their story brand, right?
Mhm.
And in there, one of the things was after we learned that on Monday and Tuesday, we took that same piece of work that still your story brand and moved it into our signature talks on Thursday and Friday.
Yeah.
So what a difference it makes when you have some structure to your talk, you learn your talk, you only have one talk, right?
Right.
You only have one talk. You don't need a billion different talks out there for to go to every single group, right? It's like know what you do, know the
Mhm.
problem you solve, know the problem your client has that you can solve for them, and then you speak about that one thing, right? That's
Right.
really it's so important for people to focus down into what is the problem they solve all the time as a speaker.
As I say, stay in your lane.
Stay in your lane.
Stick in
Exactly.
your lane and pick a lane and stay in your lane and do it very well.
I agree with you 100%.
Yes,
Let's talk about you have a tool for people,
I
right?
do.
So
So
tell me
I put
hold on,
together,
don't go too fast because
okay.
you know I'm slow on the buttons here. So there we go, right?
So I have this tool. It's a speaker's checklist. And I know that sounds like a very bland name. It's not a very sexy name. But it's all about once you've landed a gig, a speaking gig, what do you do? And it covers, okay, it's of course it's not all inclusive, but it hits the really important pieces of what you do once you have secured that speaking opportunity, what you need to do ahead of time, what you need to do the day of, and what you need to do afterward. It's very important to stay in the good graces and stay in contact with your host. You want to really create that relationship and be invited back.
Mm.
So there are some things you need to do after you go and speak on that particular day. So yeah, so there's like I said, it's not all inclusive, but I think there are quite a few things that people might not think about. So I would invite anyone who's listening to go ahead and grab that and take a look at it.
And I've had a peek at it. And it
Mhm.
sounds like you may even have added a couple things since I peeked before. You guys grab this checklist right now. If you ever plan on being a speaker, I'm kind of pretty sure you'll still give this away for people who come to influence, right?
Of course,
Okay,
yes.
good.
Oh yes.
Right? Just because we want them to have that because and influence is a 3-day event where you're going to learn to be a speaker for as a business owner speaker. So grab this checklist, speaker checklist that has everything what Theresa just said before, during, and after. It's such an important piece to have. So you're doing things the right way to start with.
Right.
Okay, now what if people want to get in touch with you, Theresa? How do they get in touch with you?
Oh, so the easiest way is to email me. I have a very easy to remember email. It is speakingpays@gmail.com. And just put something in the subject line saying that a milk crate moment or something like that. So I know that you heard about it or heard about my email from here. And I know you're not, somebody in another country trying to get me to embezzle $100,000 or something like that. But at least so I know where it's coming from and that you're actually interested in talking about speaking.
Exactly. And listen, if you're interested in speaking, you definitely want to be speaking to the speaker coach, right?
Yes.
Make sure
Yes.
that you set up a call with Theresa, find out what's involved with that, and come see her co-teach with me at Influence, right? And
Yes.
I didn't put anything out there for Influence. Listen, tell if you want information about influence, ask Teresa. She can send you some info on that way. Anyway, all right, Teresa. I always ask people at the end of the interview one thing: what is one piece of advice that every single person needs to know? Business advice, right?
Business advice.
Yeah, business advice.
Speaking is your number one marketing tool because it is your fastest path to cash.
I agree 100%, right?
Yes.
It's the way I built my business. I took mine from, $300 a month to 10,000 in 18 months. So it is really the fastest way to build a business. All right, Teresa, thank you so much for being here.
Thank
It was
you.
lovely talking to you. I'm going to ask you to hang on for just a minute afterwards. And everybody, we'll see you back here next week for another Milk Crate Business Moment. I'm Jean Kuhn. Have a